Om Tat Sat. My humble prostrations to the all-pervading Brahman, to my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, to sage Narada and all other sages and saints, and to each of you divine soul watching today's satsang. We are covering Narada Bhakti Sutras, and we will today be covering Sutra number 78. We are on the final chapter of Narada Bhakti Sutras, chapter 4. It's called Glory of One Pointed Devotion. Commentaries by my Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji, and narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So let's get started on Sutra number 78. We will be covering this sutra in two parts because it is very important to understand how to purify ourselves, and we want to do justice to it. So we will cover this today and tomorrow, the same sutra. So let's get started. Sutra 78, chapter 4, Narada Bhakti Sutras. अहिंसा सत्य शौच दया अस्तिक्यादि चारित्र्याणि परिपालनीयानि. Again, अहिंसा सत्य शौच दया आस्तिक्यादि चारित्र्याणि परिपालनीयानि. So meaning non-violence, ahimsa, Satya, truthfulness, Shauch, purity, Daya, compassion, Astikya, faith in God, etc. And all aspects, Charitrani, all other aspects of righteous conduct should be observed. So this is for a bhakta, a devotee who wants to attain supreme devotion. Supreme meaning you have to get into it like Meera, like Shabri, like Hanumanji, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Ramakrishna Paramahansa. So we have to have that level of ecstasy, and for that we need to become pure. And these are the qualities we just covered that we will need to work at. So, righteous conduct is the very foundation of devotional movement, ethical living, righteous conduct. Even when a devotee ascends the higher rungs of devotion, he does not disregard the rules of righteous conduct. So the same thing that sage Patanjali says, sage Narada is also validating. Yamas, niyamas, etc. should always be maintained. And ahimsa, which is non-violence, is a very, very important aspect, because that helps you to relate the consciousness in every being as your own. That is why you do non-violence. So it does not discard the rules of righteous conduct, but rather adheres to them with increasing spontaneity. So a bhakta does all these things as if through his inherent nature. It is true that a perfected devotee goes beyond virtue and vice, yet it is erroneous to think that he will ever ignore the rules of conduct. They emanate from sages like sweet aroma coming out of sandalwood or the smell of a rose. They blossom spontaneously. So beginners who practice the yamas, niyamas in a limited manner and with much effort, but as the spiritual journey continues, it becomes effortless. So from sadhana they become siddha. Although the present sutra mentions only some important qualities, all other aspects of virtue which are described in the yamas and niyamas, in the Upanishads, in the Gita Puranas, are implied. That's what sage is saying. So all other qualities are also part of it. So we cannot say sage forgot this or that. He's saying these are the important ones, and go on purifying yourself with the others also. So following our descriptions of the virtues enumerated in this sutra, as we talked about ahimsa, which is ahimsa paramo dharma, that is the highest value, highest virtue. And if you think about Lord Buddha, what comes to mind? Compassion. And non-violence is in fact universal love, based on the knowledge that the same divinity dwells in every heart. Just like we feel pain when we are hurt, others feel the same pain also. Inflicting injury on any living being then is turning away from the divine beloved, and therefore we fall in our bhakti, and we will feel that. So therefore it is recommended we follow these suggestions and virtues. One hurts others in three ways. We can hurt others either physically or verbally or mentally. So by killing a person obviously is the grossest form of violence. Robbing a person of his mental peace, giving somebody stress, etc., we are creating mental violence. While leading a person away from his spiritual goal is the subtlest form of violence. But all these still are violence. Even keeping oneself in a state of ignorance, deprived of the experience of divine love, is a subtle form of violence practiced towards one's own self, because in theory you have the potential to attain God realization, and yet we are ignoring it and giving importance to trivial things and our own ignorance. So we have to be mindful. A victory won on the basis of violence and hatred is transient in nature and is the source of numerous evils. But a victory won through love continues to shine for centuries to come and is the source of numerous blessings. Think of all the contributions that these sages, saints like Adi Shankaracharya ji and so many others, Mahatma Gandhi, they have made to this world. So there is no effort more heroic than dominating the enemies of the soul in the form of anger and hate. So once we can control our anger and hate, we have made significant progress on this journey. And then the next virtue is Satya. Satya means truth. So it's practiced in three ways also: through our actions, through our speech, and through our mind. So therefore they say Satyam vada priyam vada na vada satyam apriyam. Speak the truth, but speak the truth that is pleasing and polite, and not something that is harsh and painful. So the divine self is the highest truth, that is the ultimate. Therefore one practices mental truthfulness by turning the mind to God and freeing the intellect from the pressures of egoistic illusions. So truthfulness in speech implies rendering the speech in harmony with one's thoughts. So say what you think and do what you say. So harmony in your action, word, and thought is very important. So the next virtue is shauch. Shauch means purity. Purity again is of two types: external and internal. So when we brush our teeth, we take our shower, we get ready, we keep ourselves clean, is external purity. And internal purity is when we are trying to get over all these vices of anger, greed, lust, jealousy, desires, etc. So it's a constant journey from outside as well as within. From a broad point of view, external purity, like we said, to be more specific, is keeping the body clean by bathing properly, wearing clean clothes, eating sattvic or pure food like vegetables, cereals, nuts, milk, fruit, variations of other products that you like, vegetarian things, etc. Keeping then also keeping one's residence clean and purifying its atmosphere by offering hospitality to saintly personalities, and whoever comes to your house, welcome them as divinity arriving to you, and purify it. Then burn sacred incense, chant divine name, continue to do your meditation and japa in your prayer center, etc. Also included here is adoring the walls with the pictures of gods and goddesses, sages and saints, as well as the great sayings of the scriptures, or anything that elevates the mind and creates inspiring associations and aspirations. So it's very important to feel holy externally and internally as well. Engaging oneself in righteous actions and earning one's livelihood on the basis of ethical values of life is very important. So we should earn a clean, healthy living. Developing purity in one's dealings with relatives, friends, and others. So that is also purity is required from that aspect also. Just having, saying what we mean and being simple, not misappropriating others' objects, and not hoarding possessions beyond one's needs, aparigraha. So for those of you interested, Sage Patanjali has covered this in great detail, and I have covered this in Patanjali Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. It comes in the yamas and niyamas sections, the do's and don'ts of ethical behavior. But internal purity, like we said, is eradicating our mental vices of hypocrisy, lust, greed, anger, infatuation, pride, jealousy, attachment, hatred. All these things I'm repeating because unless we start cleansing ourselves of these things, we will not get to the end zone, to the goal, to our cherished goal of parabhakti. But yet this is a constant journey. That's why it takes time. It also implies cultivating such virtues as simplicity, humility, dispassion, cheerfulness, and thoughtfulness. So we should always do these things with that thought. So we will now cover the remaining aspects of this sutra tomorrow, and then we will move onwards. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Om Tat Sat.